Before we start, please support the channel, hit like, and subscribe. The front door creaked open just past midnight. I didn't need to look at the clock. I'd been watching it for hours. The house was quiet, wrapped in the kind of stillness that makes every sound louder. Laura stepped in, heels clicking softly against the hardwood, hair slightly tousled, jacket hanging off one shoulder. She smelled like a mix of wine and expensive cologne, neither of which belonged in our home at that hour. I stayed seated at the kitchen table, mug in hand. My voice was even when I asked, "Where were you?" Her eyes flicked up, startled for a split second, then sharp. "Don't start, Ethan. It's late." "You're 3 hours later than late," I said. "I called. You didn't pick up." She threw her keys in the bowl by the door a little too hard. "I was with friends. I don't have to check in like I'm your teenage daughter." "I wasn't asking for a GPS pin," I replied, still calm. "I was worried. That's not a crime." Laura scoffed, turning toward the stairs. "I'm not doing this right now." I stood up. "Laura." She froze, just for a breath, then spun back around, fire in her eyes. "What? What do you want from me, Ethan? Huh? You sit here like some silent saint while I'm out living my life, and suddenly you've got questions?" "I asked you one," I said. "Where were you?" Her laugh was bitter. "Why don't you admit it? You want control. You want me in this house every night by 10, apron on, quiet, obedient." I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "Don't raise your voice, Laura. Grace is asleep." "I'm not the problem, Ethan," she snapped, pointing a finger at me. "You're so cold all the time. You act like I'm the one tearing this family apart when you've been checked out for years." I felt something in me tighten, not anger. Something deeper. Something colder. "Laura," I said again, this time quieter. "Lower your voice." But it was already too late. A soft shuffle came from the hallway. I turned just in time to see Grace standing there in her flannel pajamas, her long brown hair mussed from sleep, eyes wide and confused. "Is everything okay?" she whispered. Laura took a step back, caught in the act. I could see the guilt flash in her expression, just for a second, then gone, replaced by defensiveness. "We were just talking," she said. Grace looked at me, not her. That didn't sound like talking. I couldn't speak. Not yet. The shame was thick, settling into the air like fog. I clenched my jaw, forcing my eyes away from Laura and back to my daughter. "Go back to bed, sweetheart," I said gently. "It's late." She didn't move, just stood there, caught between two worlds, the safety she thought this house offered and the cracks now running right through its walls. "I hate when you fight," she whispered. Then she turned and padded silently back to her room. The kitchen fell quiet. Laura crossed her arms, but the fight had drained out of her. She shouldn't have heard that. I nodded once. No, she shouldn't have. Neither of us moved. Neither of us apologized. And all I could think was, this wasn't how it was supposed to be. I had built this life carefully. Steady job. Nice house in Maryland's quiet suburbs. Weekends grilling in the backyard. Chess games with Grace after dinner. It wasn't perfect, but it was peaceful. Or it had been. Until now. The morning light poured into the breakfast nook like nothing had happened the night before. Our kitchen always looked too peaceful in the morning. Soft yellow walls, a vase of wildflowers Grace had picked last week, the soft hum of the refrigerator in the background. It was the kind of morning that usually made me smile. But not today. I leaned against the counter, pouring 2 mugs of coffee, one for me, one for Laura, out of habit. Then I stopped and poured the second one down the drain. Grace sat at the table, her spoon moving slowly through her cereal. Not eating, just stirring. Her face was still puffy from sleep, but her eyes? They were sharp, alert, watching. I sat down across from her, coffee warming my hands, and waited. She didn't look up. "You and Mom were yelling last night." I nodded slowly. "Yeah." "Was it about me?" Her voice was small. Too small. "No," I said quickly. "Not at all. Don't ever think that." Grace finally looked up, her eyes meeting mine. "Then what was it about?" I hesitated. The truth was too big, and too cruel to hand to a 15-year-old over a bowl of cereal. "It's just marriage stuff," I said. "Sometimes grown-ups hit a rough patch. It's not your fault, Grace. It's not even something you need to worry about." She set her spoon down carefully, like any sudden movement might crack the table. "Is she going to leave?" she asked. The question hit me in the chest. Hard. "No," I said softly. "No one's leaving." "Then why did she come home so late?" Grace asked. Why didn't she say goodnight to me? I rubbed my hand over my mouth, buying time. Your mom has been going through something. I don't have all the answers yet, but I'm going to make sure everything turns out okay. Are you sure? She asked. I nodded, even though I wasn't. I am. Grace picked up her spoon again, but didn't eat. You're not yelling now. No, I said. Yelling doesn't fix anything. She blinked a few times, then looked toward the hallway. Is she still asleep? Probably. Do you still love her? I froze. Not because I didn't know, but because I did. Yes, I said. But love's complicated sometimes. It's not always easy. Grace nodded slowly. Then, almost under her breath, you deserve someone who loves you easy. I looked at her, really looked, and realized just how much she'd been paying attention to everything. Where'd you hear that? I asked, trying to smile. She shrugged. I don't know. Probably a show. Well, I said, reaching out to brush a strand of hair behind her ear. Thank you. She leaned into my hand, just slightly. I just don't want us to fall apart. I swallowed hard. Me neither. We sat there for a while in that soft morning stillness, both of us pretending that the walls didn't feel thinner than they used to, that the silence wasn't heavier. The sunlight kept pouring in like a lie, the kind that tells you everything is fine when the ground is already shifting. I reached for my coffee, but it had gone cold. The sun was working overtime that afternoon. Cloudless sky, low 70s, a light breeze lifting the scent of charcoal and hickory into the neighborhood. Perfect day for a birthday barbecue. I'd spent most of the morning setting things up, folding chairs, the pop-up canopy, the little red cooler Grace and I had filled with ice. Even hung those dumb paper lanterns she liked from the dogwood tree, just for her. She was inside finishing the lemonade, wearing one of my old Orioles caps backwards, trying to act like she wasn't excited. But I saw the smile she kept hiding. She wanted today to feel normal. Happy. I wanted that too. Laura had been in the bedroom for over an hour. She hadn't said much all morning, just mumbled something about her head hurting when I offered her coffee. But now, as I was laying out the burgers by the grill, the screen door creaked open and she stepped out, purse already on her shoulder. I need to run a quick errand, she said, sunglasses already covering her eyes. I paused, looked up at her from the grill. Right now? It won't take long, she said, too fast. I'll be back before people arrive. You didn't mention anything earlier, I said carefully, trying to keep my voice even. What kind of errand? Laura shifted, her grip tightening around the purse strap. I just need to pick something up. What? I asked. She didn't answer. I took a step toward her. Laura, please, don't do this. She crossed her arms. Do what, Ethan? I said I'll be back. We have guests coming. Family. Friends. Grace is making lemonade like it's the 4th of July. I'm asking you to stay. Just today. Be present. Her jaw tensed. Don't guilt trip me. It's a half hour at most. I lowered my voice, glancing toward the kitchen window. She's watching. Please don't walk out like this. Then don't make a scene. Laura snapped, her voice rising. I'm asking for the truth, I said. Where are you really going? I told you. Errand. I shook my head. No, you're lying again. Laura's hands clenched at her sides. I don't need your permission to leave the house. I'm not asking as your warden, I said quietly. I'm asking as your husband. As a father. Please, Laura, don't make me lie to our guests. But she was already stepping off the porch. Then don't. Just tell them I had to run out. I followed her halfway to the driveway. Does he know it's my birthday? She froze. For 1 second, she didn't move, didn't breathe. Then she turned, her face unreadable behind those dark glasses. I'll be back, she said. And then she got into the car, started the engine, and backed out like she couldn't get away fast enough. I stood there, heart thudding, hands at my sides as the car vanished down the street. Behind me, I heard the screen door open again. Dad. Grace's voice was soft, confused. Where's Mom going? I turned and tried to smile. She'll be back in a bit, sweetheart. Grace stared past me at the empty driveway. She didn't even say goodbye. I didn't have an answer for that. Guests began arriving minutes later. My brother Scott, his wife, my coworker Drew and his twin toddlers, neighbors with a bundt cake, friends from the old church. They came in laughing, carrying gifts and drinks, and that high Saturday energy that fills a backyard like sunlight. And I met them all with the same steady face, the same polite words. Thank you for coming. Yep, burgers are ready soon. No, Laura just stepped out, but she'll be back. I wore that mask like armor. Grace helped pass out lemonade, but she kept looking at the road. Every few minutes, just a quick glance, like she was waiting for the engine she knew too well. It never came. The burgers sizzled. People sang. I opened gifts and blew out candles. Somewhere in the middle of it all, I realized I hadn't taken a single photo. Because what would I capture? A smiling man standing in front of a hollow space. I caught Grace staring at me from across the yard. She gave a small wave, tentative. I smiled back, lifting my soda in a silent toast. She returned it, but the corner of her mouth didn't quite lift. I could see the question in her eyes. Where is she? And worse, why did she choose to leave today? I didn't have an answer for that either. The sky was barely more than a whisper of pink when I heard the crunch of tires in the gravel. A slow, careful roll. The sound of someone trying not to wake the dead. Too late for that. I was already standing by the living room window, arms folded, the front door cracked open to the morning breeze. Laura stepped out of a silver rideshare, still wearing the same dress she'd left in. Her heels clicked against the cold pavement as she looked around, confused, at first, then sharply alert. Like something was off. Because something was missing. The car. Her car. She looked twice at the driveway, then turned toward the house, her voice rising in a sharp, ragged cut through the dawn stillness. Ethan, where's my car? I stepped fully into the doorway, arms crossed. I didn't move. Didn't blink. Laura froze when she saw me. Her bag slid off her shoulder slightly, caught in her elbow. What the hell is going on? She demanded, walking toward the porch. Where is it? Gone, I said, voice flat. She blinked. What? Sold. She stopped cold at the base of the steps. You sold my car? It was in my name, I said. Paid off last year. Title was clean. Her mouth opened, stunned. You had no right. I took a step down, not angry, just still. I had every right. She stared at me, trying to summon that fire she used to carry so easily, but I could see it. The crack in her voice, the trembling edge hiding behind the words. This is insane, she snapped. You don't get to punish me like some jealous. Let your lover buy you a new one, I said quietly. And just like that, the world stopped moving. She blinked rapidly, color draining from her face. What did you say? I didn't repeat it. I just stood there, letting the silence stretch between us like a rope pulled tight. I don't have a lover, she said finally, voice shaking but forced into something sharp. I told you it was an errand. I didn't move. You don't get to accuse me of things you can't prove. Still, I didn't say a word. Because I didn't need to. My silence said everything. It told her that I didn't believe her. That I wouldn't be baited into some loud, chaotic scene. That I was past needing an explanation. She faltered, took a step forward, then stopped. You're being cruel. Grace saw you leave, I said quietly. She asked where you were all day. I told her you'd be back. I am back. Now, I said. Now you're back. Her lip trembled slightly. She covered it by biting down, hard. You really think I'd do that? She asked. That I'd throw away everything we built? I tilted my head, letting the porch light catch just enough of her face to see the truth, the little fractures behind her words. You already did, I said, steady as steel. She swallowed, took a breath, but nothing came. Her hands gripped the strap of her bag, so tight her knuckles whitened. You don't know anything, she said finally. But it was too late for that. I stepped back inside and let the screen door creak shut behind me. She didn't follow. For a long time, I just stood there, not out of anger, but because there was nothing left to say. When trust breaks, it doesn't shatter with noise. It cracks in silence. The bar smelled like old wood, cheap whiskey, and fried food that had been cooked 3 hours too long. It was the kind of place where time didn't matter. No clocks, no music loud enough to distract you. Just the low murmur of conversations and the occasional clink of a glass meeting a tabletop. I sat in the farthest booth, under a rusted brass sconce that barely threw out enough light to read the menu. Not that I needed it. I hadn't come to eat. Marcus slid into the seat across from me, tossing his coat beside him. He hadn't changed much over the years, still wore those beat-up boots and a sarcastic smirk like armor. Happy birthday, man, he said, raising his glass. Heard it was a real party. I cracked a dry smile. You could say that. He took a sip and leaned back, studying me. So, she really didn't come back? She came back, I said. At dawn. His brows lifted. Wow. She asked where her car was. I continued. He coughed out a laugh. Don't tell me, I sold it. Marcus let out a low whistle. Cold. Legal, I said. Still cold. I took a slow drink from my glass, letting the silence stretch a little. Marcus didn't press. He never did. That's why I called him. She's lying, I said after a moment. He nodded. You sure? I looked at him. Really looked. You ever ask someone a question, and the way they answer, it's not just what they say. It's what they don't even try to deny. He nodded slowly. Yeah, I've been there. I didn't yell, I said. Didn't lose it. I just stood there and watched her unravel. That scares them more sometimes, he said quietly. I looked down at my drink, turning the glass slowly in my hand. Grace saw her leave. Saw her come back. Asked me why she didn't say goodbye. Marcus leaned in, voice lower now. That's the part that matters. I know. You're not just a husband in this, Ethan. You're a father. You set the temperature of that house. If you keep letting her chaos define the climate, Grace is going to carry that cold for the rest of her life. I looked at him, my chest heavy. Then what do? I asked. He shrugged gently. You already know. I stared past him, out the front window where the streetlights cast long shadows onto cracked sidewalks. Everything out there looked like it hadn't changed in 20 years. But I had. Without another word, I slid out of the booth, pulled out my phone, and walked toward the bar exit. The cold air hit me like a wall, sharp, biting, honest. I welcomed it. My thumb hovered over the contact, then tapped. 2 rings. Then a voice. Hey, it's Ethan, I said, steady, calm. Let's start the divorce. Silence on the line. Just a breath. I want full custody, I added. And I'm not looking for a drawn-out fight. I'm looking for peace. For my daughter. Understood, the lawyer replied. I hung up, slipped the phone back into my pocket, and looked up at the streetlight blinking above me. It was freezing, but I felt warmer than I had in weeks. She called it a fresh start. Said she wanted to reconnect as a family, her exact words. Grace lit up the second she heard the idea. Her eyes darted between us, hopeful, hungry for something she couldn't name. You mean like the 3 of us? All weekend. Laura smiled like it was effortless. Cabin near Mount Rogers. Cozy. Clean air. No phones. I nodded slowly. You already booked it? Yeah, she said. Just thought we could use it. Grace turned to me, eyes wide. Can we go, Dad? Just for a little? Please? There were 100 reasons to say no. But the way Grace looked, like maybe this was her one shot to rewind things to what they used to be, I couldn't take that from her. Not yet. All right, I said. Laura exhaled like she'd been holding her breath. Great. The drive up was filled with Grace's playlist. Old pop songs she half sang, half mocked in the back seat. She had her camera out the window, snapping blurry shots of trees, clouds, deer crossings. Laura glanced over at me once or twice. I didn't look back. The cabin was simple. 1 floor, wood-paneled walls, and the scent of pine and dust in every corner. It had a fireplace, thick quilts, and a view that stretched forever. Grace was already unpacking snacks. Can we do s'mores tonight? Absolutely, I said. Laura smiled faintly. I'll get the marshmallows. We hiked that afternoon. Nothing strenuous, just an easy trail that looped past a waterfall and climbed gently into gold-colored woods. Grace kept skipping ahead, posing dramatically on rocks and making us take photos of her adventure stance. She handed me the camera once. Get one of me and Mom. I lifted it, paused. Laura stepped beside her, arm around her shoulder. They smiled. I pressed the button. Grace ran off again. Laura lingered, brushing a leaf off her jacket. Thanks for agreeing to this, she said softly. I kept walking. I didn't agree for you. I know. I did it for Grace. Laura nodded, keeping pace. I meant what I said. I want us to feel normal again. I didn't answer, because there was no normal to return to. That evening, we ate around the fire, soup from a pot over the flames, crackers, cocoa. Grace curled up in a camp chair, her nose pink from the cold, blanket wrapped around her legs. She laughed at one of her own jokes, and I saw it again, that flicker of hope. Like if she laughed hard enough, maybe the cracks would close. Laura sat across from me, poking at the fire, stealing glances when she thought I wasn't looking. I was. Not because I wanted to. Because I needed to remember this version of her. This calm, pretending to care version for what it was. Performance. Grace yawned wide and leaned into my side. Best day ever, she mumbled. I kissed the top of her head. Laura smiled from across the fire. She's happy. I looked into the flames. That's the only thing that matters. We sat like that until the stars took over the sky and the logs cracked to ash. The silence between Laura and me didn't fill the space. It sharpened it. The suitcase wheels bumped softly against the tile as we walked through the door. Grace dropped her backpack by the couch and headed straight to the fridge. Do we still have that peach tea? Top shelf, I said. Laura paused by the doorway, watching her like she was taking a mental photo. Then she turned to me. I'll unpack later, she said. You want me to start dinner? Don't worry about it, I replied. I've got something to handle first. I walked past her and into the kitchen, opened the drawer by the sink, pulled out the file I'd been keeping there for days now. I placed it carefully on the island. No drama, no force. Just there. Plain, heavy, impossible to ignore. Laura stared at the folder, her smile slowly fading. What's that? You know what it is. She stepped closer, wariness creeping into her voice. Now. I met her eyes. Now. Grace had wandered into the living room, music playing low from her phone. The bubble of her voice rose, then fell again as she started humming along. Laura opened the folder slowly, eyes scanning the first page. She didn't sit, just stood there, hands trembling just enough to notice. You want full custody? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded. Yes. She snapped the folder shut. You're not serious. I am. Her shoulders stiffened. You don't get to take her from me. I didn't move. I'm not taking her. I'm protecting her. Laura's voice rose suddenly, cutting through the quiet. You think I'm not a good mother? Keep your voice down, I said. She's in the next room. You want to paint me as the villain, she hissed. Because I made a mistake? Because I needed something you stopped giving me years ago? I stayed silent. You know what? She said, breath shaking. Fine. You want truth? You were right. There is someone. She said it like it would break me, like it would crack open my chest and make me crawl. But I didn't flinch. I figured, I said. She blinked. That's all you have to say? I looked at her. This woman I once built a life with, now a stranger in my kitchen. You already chose, I said. This just makes it official. Her face crumbled for a split second, just enough for me to see it. That guilt, that fear. Then she shoved the papers back toward me. The court will decide. I nodded. They will. I turned and walked away, leaving the folder on the counter, the flames of her anger still flickering behind me. Grace looked up from the couch. Dad? Everything okay? I forced a calm smile. Yes, sweetheart. Just talking through something. She nodded, trusting me. Always trusting. I stepped outside, closed the door gently behind me, and breathed in the cool air like it was medicine. The storm had passed, but the silence afterward? That was where the real work began. The investigator's office sat wedged between a pawn shop and a bail bonds place, just off Charles Street. It looked more like a place you'd go to forget something, not uncover it. Inside, everything was gray, the walls, the weathered chairs, the mood. Sorry about the mess, the man said, motioning toward the scattered folders and an ancient coffee mug that hadn't been washed since spring. I don't usually do walk-ins, but for a guy who paid up front and asked for nothing but facts? He gave a small, crooked smile. I made time. Thanks, I said, settling into the seat across from him. The desk between us was scratched and stained. On it sat a battered laptop, already booted up. He reached for a flash drive. Most of what I found is from 3 places: her work garage, the boutique hotel on Calvert, and a bar in Federal Hill. You sure you want to see it? I nodded once. Play it. He slid the drive into the laptop. The screen lit up with choppy black and white footage. No sound, just movement and timestamps. This one's from 2 weeks ago, he said, double-clicking the first file. Lobby camera, boutique hotel. Small, discreet. Mostly business travelers. I leaned forward. The elevator opened. There she was, Laura, stepping out with her coat draped over her arm. She looked casual, confident, too comfortable. And then he followed. Tall, in a pressed shirt, holding a key card. They didn't touch it first. They didn't have to. The way she looked at him, tilted chin, the curl of her smile, said everything. Here, the PI muttered, scrubbing ahead a few seconds. They stopped just outside the elevator. She laughed, you could see it in her shoulders. Then he leaned in, kissed her. Not the awkward kind. Not the unsure, what are we doing kind. No, it was full, certain, like they'd done it 100 times before. My hand stayed folded on my lap. The investigator shot me a glance. This next part shows them heading into a room. You want me to skip it? Play it, I said. The screen showed them disappearing down the hallway. Her hand on his back, his on the small of hers. The door opened. They stepped in. Fade to black. I exhaled slowly. You get the timestamps? Every one, he said, clicking into a folder. Also got front desk records. She used a fake name twice. Other times, he booked. I printed those. He slid a folder across the desk. I didn't touch it yet. I stared at the frozen frame on the screen. Laura mid-laugh. That softness in her eyes. I'd seen that look before, but not for a long time. And not for me. I didn't follow her because I needed proof, I said after a moment. The PI didn't reply. I followed her because I needed the truth in front of me, where it can't be lied about, can't be spun. That's the only way some people believe it, he said, when they see it with their own eyes. I nodded, slowly. He pulled the flash drive from the laptop and handed it over. You want the hard drive backup too? No, I said. That's enough. I tucked the flash drive into my coat pocket. Then I stood, shook his hand, and stepped back out into the cold. The sky had turned silver. Wind curling between the buildings, sharp enough to cut. But inside me, I felt calm. Not because it didn't hurt, it did. But because now I knew. And sometimes, knowing is the only power you get. The courtroom was colder than I expected, not in temperature, but in tone. Pale walls, thin carpet, a silence so heavy it seemed to press down on everyone in the room. Even the air felt cautious. I sat at the petitioner's table, suit pressed, hands folded. My lawyer, Dana Coates, shuffled through a slim folder beside me with the quiet confidence of someone who knew the truth was enough. Across from us sat Laura. Her blouse was ironed, hair styled neatly, but her fingers twisted the edge of her sleeve with a rhythm she couldn't seem to stop. Her attorney, a young guy named Renz, kept glancing at her like he was waiting for instructions. But she had none to give. The judge, stern, gray-haired, thoughtful, adjusted her glasses and looked at Dana. You may proceed. Dana rose. Your Honor, we are seeking full physical and legal custody of Grace Harper Langley, 15, on the grounds of parental misconduct, instability, and breach of marital trust. The respondent, Mrs. Langley, has demonstrated a pattern of dishonesty and emotional neglect toward both the petitioner and their daughter. She slid a flash drive onto the table. This drive contains time-stamped surveillance footage gathered legally by a licensed investigator. It shows Mrs. Langley engaging in a romantic relationship with an individual outside the marriage, while actively concealing the nature of her absences from her spouse and daughter. The footage spans several months. The judge raised an eyebrow. Was the child exposed to this conduct directly? No, Your Honor, Dana replied. But she was indirectly impacted. We will provide testimony that the respondent frequently left the home without explanation, returned at late or inappropriate hours, and engaged in arguments in earshot of the child, behavior that undermined the child's emotional stability and trust. Laura shifted in her seat, her face slowly draining of color. Renz leaned over and whispered something in her ear, but she didn't respond. Dana continued, voice steady. We also present Exhibit B, booking records from the boutique hotel, as well as falsified registration entries. The respondent used aliases, demonstrating awareness of the secrecy and dishonesty of her actions. The judge nodded. Thank you. You may submit the drive and records. Dana sat. I felt her hand briefly tap mine under the table. Just once, calm, measured, like she knew we'd already crossed the finish line. Judge Hemphill turned to Renz. Does the respondent have a rebuttal? He rose slowly. Your Honor, we acknowledge the footage and the documents. However, we ask the court to consider that Mrs. Langley's relationship was pursued only after the marriage had deteriorated significantly. She maintains that her bond with her daughter remains intact. The judge cut him off gently. I don't see evidence of emotional or physical abuse by the petitioner. Is Mrs. Langley contesting the custody request? Renz hesitated. We respectfully defer to the court's discretion. Laura blinked rapidly, her jaw tense. I watched her chest rise and fall, shallow, erratic. She didn't say a word. Not one. Not even to me. I didn't look away. The judge made a few notes, then looked directly at me. Mr. Langley, she said. Do you wish to speak on the record before I rule? I stood. Yes, Your Honor. I looked across the room, at the woman who once shared my dreams, my daughter's birth, our quiet dinners, our family photos, and now sat silent behind a wall of decisions she made without me. I didn't come here to punish her, I said. I came here to protect my daughter. Grace needs peace. She needs structure. She needs truth. I'm the one who stayed when it got hard. I'm the one who answered her questions, made her breakfast, helped her sleep when her mother didn't come home. My voice didn't waver. I'm not asking to erase her mother. I'm asking to give Grace a place where love doesn't come with confusion. The judge nodded, slowly. Thank you. She glanced down at the folder, then closed it gently. This court awards sole legal and physical custody of Grace Harper Langley to the petitioner, Mr. Ethan Langley, she said. Divorce is granted effective immediately. The respondent will have supervised visitation, pending review. Laura didn't speak. She just stared down at her lap, motionless. Renz reached for her arm, but she pulled it away. Dana leaned toward me. It's done. I nodded, not smiling. Because this wasn't a victory. It was the last breath of something long dead. And now, at least, we could all stop pretending it wasn't. It was the kind of Sunday that makes you forget winter ever happened. Just warm enough to keep your jacket in the car, just breezy enough to rustle the trees without stealing the sun. Grace and I sat beneath a white wooden gazebo at Hillside Park, cones in hand, the quiet hum of spring around us. She had mint chocolate chip, I had vanilla. She always teased me about that. Said it was the dad of all flavors. We hadn't talked much on the ride over. Just the soft hum of the radio and the open windows. Sometimes quiet meant tension. Today, it didn't. Today, it just meant we didn't have to fill the air with words we no longer feared. Grace swung her feet a little, her sneakers bumping softly against the wooden bench. I still think it's weird, she said between licks. What is? She shrugged. That it's just us now. Not bad weird. Just different. I nodded. It is different. But not scary anymore, she added quickly. I don't know, like I have to pick sides. I looked over at her. She wasn't looking at me, just at the little boy feeding ducks across the path. You don't, I said. You never did. She was quiet for a moment. Then, softly, I'm glad I'm with you, Dad. I turned my head. Her voice hadn't cracked, but her eyes were glistening. She met my gaze. You never gave up on me. I set my cone down on the bench beside me, reached out and squeezed her hand. Never will, I said. She blinked fast and smiled a little, brushing at her eye with her sleeve. You're gonna make me cry, and we're in public. Don't be corny. I laughed. You're the one getting emotional over ice cream. She smirked, nudging me with her shoulder. We sat like that for a while, watching the sun stretch across the pond, the ducks waddling in slow lines, the trees just starting to bloom. She leaned her head against my shoulder. Do you hate her? No, I said. Grace didn't move, but I felt her listening closely. I don't hate your mom, I continued. I won't speak badly about her, not to you. Because love, real love, doesn't turn cruel. It might end, it might change, but it doesn't have to poison the people left behind. Grace nodded against me, her voice barely audible. Thank you. The breeze picked up, brushing through her hair. I let my arm rest across her shoulders, pulling her just a little closer. For the first time in a long time, the silence around us felt like peace. Not absence, not tension, just stillness. And stillness, I've learned, is sometimes the sound of healing. Rain hung in the air like an unfinished thought, not quite falling, but heavy enough to make everything gray. I was in the living room, sorting a stack of Grace's textbooks, when the doorbell rang. I already knew who it was before I looked. Laura stood on the porch, umbrella in hand, hair damp around the edges. Her expression wasn't sharp this time. It was tired, strained. The kind of face someone wears when they've practiced their lines but don't believe them anymore. I opened the door, stepping aside without a word. She slipped in, lowering her umbrella with a soft click. Is Grace home? She's upstairs, I said. You can see her. Laura hesitated near the doorway, fingers tightening around the handle of the umbrella. I wanted to say something before I go up. I stayed still. All right. She didn't sit, just stood there in the entryway, like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to cross fully into this life anymore. I've been thinking, she said slowly, a lot, about how everything spiraled, about the choices I made. I was selfish. I hurt both of you. I didn't interrupt. Her voice cracked a little. I thought I needed something else, someone else. And in the process, I lost the only place that ever felt like home. I looked at her then, not the woman I once married, not the one who betrayed me, just a person unraveling in front of the truth. She took a small step forward. I'm sorry, Ethan. I really am. I don't expect anything from you. I just needed to say it. There was a long pause. She kept looking at me like she was waiting for me to let her in, not into the house, but into the space between us, the one she used to live in. And I could feel the storm behind her apology, that pull toward resolution, toward connection, maybe even toward forgiveness. But I didn't move. My voice came quiet, steady. Don't raise your voice. Don't start anything. She swallowed, nodding. Grace comes first now, I added. Nothing else. Laura closed her eyes for a second, then nodded again. I understand. She's in her room, I said, stepping aside. Laura made her way slowly up the stairs, each footstep quieter than the last. I watched her go, then turned back toward the table, picked up Grace's math book and slipped it into her backpack. From upstairs, I heard the faint creak of a door opening, then her daughter's voice, surprised, unsure, soft. I didn't try to listen. Some things were no longer mine to carry. I just sat down, let the rain tap gently against the windows, and let the stillness return. That was the end of my story. I've been thinking a lot about what Marcus told me back at that bar, how the temperature of a house gets set by what we allow and what we let go. He pushed me to stop waiting for Laura to change and start choosing what Grace needed most. So now I have to ask you, did Marcus do the right thing by telling me to move forward, even if it meant tearing our family apart to rebuild something smaller but honest? Let me know in the comments. And if this story meant something to you, don't forget to like and subscribe for more.